There we go. It's Friday. May not be a day that you're expecting to see Adam. Well, I don't even know what day it'll be on. Today's typically a Nick day, but Nick was yesterday. Adam's today. Whatever day you're watching this, we appreciate you being here today. On the week, Bryce Harper hit his 300th home run. The Cubs are still in the heat of the playoff race, and we're here talking about why some agents are just too damn lazy to actually go out there and make money. Adam, how's your week going, and are you ready to tackle another episode together?
Personal production wise has been really good, Chris. I just get out in the field 3 days a week. Mondays and Fridays are my office days to kind of keep up with the business and work on bringing new guys on and, work on contracting and all that stuff. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I hit it pretty hard. I'm just under 8,000 for the week in production, personal production. And I might have a couple to write in the office today. So I'm hoping to hit 10 for the week. We'll see what happens.
There you go. I think you might have beat me for the week. I haven't bothered to total anything up, but it just proves 3 solid days of early start, late finish type production, fueled by hard work, direct mail, and a few appointments. It's possible. There's really no magic recipe behind it, right?
How many set appointments I had this week, Chris?
I don't. How many?
Well, I had 1 set appointment.
Ouch.
That's the only, I wrote 1 app on a set appointment. All the rest were just door knocks.
It can happen. And you didn't make that as an excuse to prevent production from happening. You just still went out there and found a way to make it happen.
Well, yeah, I talk about that a lot. I mean, even when you have the set appointments, I always talk about plan ahead as though they're not going to be home. You always got to know what your next move's going to be. And I'm always putting routes together. I use this app called En Route that is very helpful with putting the routes together and staying organized, along with I use that Notability. I think you use Notability too on the iPad. I put all my leads in Notability. It really helps me to stay organized. And like I said, it just kind of, snap your fingers and kind of move on to the next and not have trouble locating your leads. I mean, in the past, I had just tons of printed leads all over my car, just totally disorganized. It would be much more difficult to put a route together when I'm shuffling through leads, trying to figure out the areas and looking up the leads and the zip codes and all that stuff. So just kind of having everything sorted through on that Notability. And I mean, I take the lead when I go to the door. I just show them the lead card right on the iPad, and it's fine. People aren't like, "Where's the hard copy?" I just show them. I just show them right on the iPad. And the goal is just to get in the house. So yeah,
it's just.
I'm sorry. What's that, Chris?
It's just a ticket to get into the show. It's not a prop. It's not the rest of the show. It's not read word for word to the card what they said. It's just a way to get in the house.
And yesterday I was working one area. I had an appointment set from the prior day in another area that was like 45 minutes away. Drove down there. The girl wasn't home. But I at least still had a few other leads in that area that I could hit. So 2 in a row, I wrote a couple little ones. And then it was about 6 o'clock at night. I could have just went home. I had some other leads that were about maybe 45 minutes away from there. I figured, what the heck? I'll get over to that area about 6:45. That'll give me about a good half hour, 45 minutes to hit a few more. And ended up getting in another house, and I wrote one for, I think, around $1,500 in premium. So yeah, I'm glad that I didn't cut off early and head home. Like I said, I'm just working those 3 days. I want to get as much out of those days as I can. And especially, we got a long weekend now. Back to it on Tuesday, but just wanted to get as much done as I could. And I never liked going home with the feeling of like I could have maybe done a little bit more. I like to go home satisfied.
Even it literally all on the field is critical. When you get home being physically exhausted, that's just it. I'm done. Yeah. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to eat enough not to starve to death and then go to bed. Like, I don't want to come home fully invigorated and be like, I can do all these things around the house, because that means I didn't do enough earlier in the day when I was actually working. You mentioned that you deal oftentimes with agents that give you excuses. Like, they want to be as successful as you. They want to write $7,500 a week. They want it, but they aren't willing to do it. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I talk a whole lot about work ethic, and I don't know. I think people want to find an easy way to make a quick buck. And I mean, most successful people out there will tell you there's really no shortcuts, and it's just about putting the time in. You posted that post last night. I was just kind of thinking about the same thing. You can't treat this like a 9 to 5 job. I mean, you got to put the time in. There's people that that they work during the day. Only time we'd be able to catch the people would be in the evening or even on a weekend. And if you're treating it like a 9 to 5 job, you're throwing a lot of money away because those are people that you're never going to be able to catch up with. Same thing if you're only working appointments. If you're strictly just working appointments, well, I mean, same thing. I mean, you're leaving a lot of money on the table of people that just don't answer their phone. And there's so many. I think that's the problem lately. Even I've talked to my appointment setter. They're just having trouble getting a hold of people. People are not answering the phone. They're getting bombarded with phone calls. When people see a number coming across, they don't recognize it. They think it's a telemarketer. They're just, even if they pick up, they're not giving them the time of day. So you just got to put forth that extra effort and get out there and do the door knocks. And maybe if it's not a comfortable thing, the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. But I'm bottom line, I just think a lot of it's just work ethic and people, like I said, trying to figure it out. Maybe, thinking that I don't know. I've never understood it. For me, if I know someone's done better than me, I want to learn everything that I can from them. And I'm not going to change things. I want to just basically duplicate or replicate everything that they're doing. Even you've done like 300,000-400,000 a year in premium. I mean, right away when we started talking, I wanted to know what you were doing and how you were doing it. And, the fact that you had the appointment setter set and you just had that steady flow of leads coming in on a regular basis. I wasn't ordering consistently for a bit and I wasn't getting the same results you were. Same thing. You live, you learn. You have to, again, you find someone, they know what they're doing. You can't take what they're doing and then try to change things. I can't tell somebody to order 30 brand new leads every week. And then they say, okay, I'll order 30 aged leads and expect the same sort of results. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I learned two interesting things not just only two, but there's two things that came to mind when you were talking there. Successful people are willing to share what they're doing, but aren't successful all of a sudden won't share anything with you. I've encountered that very rarely in the business, but I have encountered it where I'm like, well, tell me about this, that, or the other thing. And they're like, oh, well, you have to contract under me. Give me $200. Then I'll whisper it under a passcode. What?
Yeah.
Or successful people that know what they're doing, success is all kind of relative, are willing to say, this is what I'm doing. This is what didn't work for me. This is what I would recommend. You could try that, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's the level of transparency that comes from people that are actually succeeding in this business. And I also learned when it comes to managing, which is kind of a relative term in an independent space, giving people enough leash to hang themselves. They're not an employee. You can't tell them what to do, but you also have to let people kind of learn on their own. Oh, that's not working. Let me try this. It's a balancing act in a lot of senses. But also, I think a lot of what you're saying, the 9 to 5 mentality, is an employee mentality, where people just want to do the basics. They just want to clock in and clock out like they're getting paid. And they need to embrace an ownership mentality. I was brand new to the business. I worked from 10 a.m. till about 7 p.m., 2 to 3 years straight, which is still kind of like 9 to 5, just different hours. But I had an employee mindset where I was working from start to finish and no negotiation behind it. So I think as much as you say 9 to 5, which is true, am I owning my business or am I an employee? Is this a hobby or something I'm serious about? Is success what I have to do, or do I have a fallback option where, well, I'm going to dip my toe, and if this doesn't work, then it was Adam's fault anyway, and whatever.
Well, yeah, and then again, that's just a whole nother accountability sort of thing. We talk about a lot too. Sometimes I wonder, would somebody rather just continue to fail than actually succeed? Like, people afraid of success? Are they afraid that maybe if they actually put the time in, they'll actually do well? I don't know. I've never understood that. To me, I'm never satisfied. I could have a great week, and then I'm going to think about, well, how can I do better next week? What can I do to write 12,000 next week if I wrote 10,000 this week? What can I do to bring on more agents next week if I brought 3 on this week? What can I do to bring on 6 next week? That's just, you mentioned something. I know you had commented on my post about the 9 to 5. What was it that you had said?
I think that what's important about that is, in this business, if you make a 2-year commitment to going all in, even if it's just 9 to 5 and it is Monday to Friday and you work 40 hours a week, if you do that hell or high water 2 years straight and everything else that you're taught, buy leads, knock the doors, run the appointments, sell the insurance, do it the right way, and you do that for 2 years straight, you can begin to scale back and adjust your lifestyle to what you've earned. But most people aren't even willing to do the 9 to 5, 5 days a week, start to finish, no days off kind of mentality. That's the problem. Like, they might say they're going to do it, but they're leaving at 3. They're starting at 11. They're out there on TikTok half the day. They're not actually even working 9 to 5. But I think, to kind of repeat myself, if you make just that simple commitment for 2 years straight, then you earn the right to really get the freedom that this business has to offer.
I think you can get comfortable. I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, you can get comfortable. You have maybe a little bit more flexibility with your schedule when you know that you have maybe a little bit more like guaranteed income coming in off of renewals, overrides, things like that. But I don't know. I don't know, my mentality, even when things get good, I just want to keep going. I don't want to slow down. I just want to continue to build and grow and really make something big happen. So I don't know. I never want to get comfortable because you just never know what the next day or month or year is going to bring you either.
Yeah. I think sometimes in those situations where people just aren't meeting your expectations, I try to figure out what their motivation is. Is Adam motivated by contests and incentives? Is Adam motivated by like accolades and recognition? Is Adam motivated by steak dinners, or what is it that this particular agent gets excited over? Because if you can figure out what motivates people, you can get them to do what they need to do. And then once they see they can do it more often. Like I was never motivated by contests, and I'm sure you weren't either. And when my first IMO would be like, it's March Madness, I'd be like, I don't care. It's April this. I'm like, I also don't care. It's May, June, lead you to a vacation. Still don't care. I actually got annoyed by contests because people are like, man, what are you going to write this week? I'm going to write 5 to 7,500. That's what I'm going to write. What are you going to do next week? 5 to 7,500. What about 15K? Maybe it could happen. Might be a good week. Might be a normal week. But figuring out what motivates people in a leadership capacity is either going to unlock a lazy person or the person that just hasn't figured out who they are yet.
I mean, my prior company, had that huge contest like end of September, beginning of October, and like agents would just come around from nowhere and just pour it on. And I'd always be like, why can't they do that the rest of the year? Like, why does it take a cash bonus contest for someone to say, oh, I need to get off my butt and actually go to work now? If you work that hard the whole year, you're not going to have to depend on, additional incentives at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, it's like carrier trips. I love carrier trips. It doesn't look like this year one's going to work out based off of the family schedule, but I thought carrier trips were helpful because it gave you a benchmark. If I write X, I get to go to Y. And if I have an independent agent who's able to qualify for a carrier trip, then I know that they're doing fine in the business. 80,000, 90,000, 65,000, whatever it is. Maybe that little motivation gets them to grease, but also gets them to a point they didn't know they could achieve in the business.
Do you ever maybe like break down an agent's day with them? See, like, what'd you do? Like, what did your day look like today? Were you out running leads? Were you making phone calls? Like, what do you say at the door? What do you say in the house? All that stuff. Again, train people on all of that. I have a sales script. I have a presentation. And I mean, I think it's good to have something like that where you just get more and more comfortable when you're in the house if you have something to kind of work off of and follow. And I almost feel like a lot of guys, they don't want to take the time to learn a presentation, that they'd rather just go into a house and just kind of ad lib it. And I don't know, maybe they're getting to quoting maybe too soon before they're building up any kind of value or trust. I don't know.
The first thing, if someone says to me, I'm not doing good, first thing I'll say to them is, well, are you involving yourself in our community and our training? Because if you're not, that's why you're not doing good. Second thing I'll say is, track tomorrow for me. Literally write 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on a piece of paper. And it sounds really elementary. And then write down for me what you do at 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then do some self-accountability. What didn't you do? And then send it to me if you really have the balls to do it. and we can break down what that day looked like, and then do that the next day, the day after that. And if you track your activity, you can figure out what's actually happening. Did you knock 25 doors? Did you give enough door approaches? Are you not getting in the home? Are you not close? Where is the actual problem once we can dissect what you're actually doing? Because I think what most problems come back to activity. You're not actually putting in any activity to be able to say why it's not working. Adam, if you said to me, last week sucked, how many presentations did you give? 6. Okay. Last week didn't happen. Right? That's not even a thing. Like I don't care to continue this conversation because you didn't see enough people for us to even dissect anything. So if you see 15 people, then we can figure out what the problem was. That's how I see it.
It makes sense. Again, a lot of these guys, I just think that maybe they need to figure out a way to handle the independence. And the day can really get away from you. I mean, even you just telling someone to kind of break down their day, honestly, maybe in the past they haven't really thought about it that way. And maybe their day just kind of looks like crap. You know what I mean? Maybe just totally disorganized. Maybe they don't really have any structure, but maybe just by you telling them to break down their day, maybe it'll make them kind of put a plan in order a little bit better than had they just continued to I think a lot of guys are just kind of ad-libbing and not really having that structure. If they don't have an appointment set, they don't want to go out in the field. And
it's just unacceptable. Like you have to have structure, and the more structure you have, the more freedom you're able to get from it. And when people realize that, then they're not as much afraid of structure. Like I'll tell you a funny story in a moment of honesty on this video this morning. I tried to leave the field early on Wednesday. The family was going out to dinner. I don't normally do this, and I was punished because of it. This is what happened. I'm like, my last appointment, I'm not going to. The 5 o'clock, I don't care about. I'm going home, and I'm going to enjoy this dinner that people are going out to. Even though it's a field day, even though they didn't expect me to be there, I decided to be like a bad agent and go to this dinner. So I left the field at like 5. I did hit my goal, but as soon as I start driving onto Broad Street, the Phillies had just lost to the Angels. And guess what happens? 30,000 people pour onto Broad Street in their vehicles immediately in front of me. And I think to myself, well, I deserve this one. Then I try to take a shortcut through the Navy base because I know you go this way to go that way. Everyone's leaving work at that exact time. It took me over 2 hours to get from here to there because I cheated myself. I tried to leave early and violate the rules of my schedule and my structure. And I learned that lesson, and I'll never do it again unless there's an emergency. But people have to realize if you have that level of structure, you have to do that. You're not going to get home early. You have to make sacrifices and structure to get the freedom that you want. But I think most people just never even come to that realization.
Well, what's funny is if you would have made 1 or 2 more stops, if you gotten maybe one more house, maybe you're in that house for an hour, you probably would have got to where you needed to get to the same time.
Exactly. I'll never make that mistake.
Traffic would have been cleared up. Maybe you would have made a little bit more money. Mm-hmm. But what's the point in sitting in traffic? I've said that forever. Like, I mean, I would rather run leads from 5 to 7 than sit in traffic for 2 hours, especially if I'm working up by Chicago. I mean, you're just going to be sitting in traffic. I'd rather keep working until the traffic clears up.
So let's wrap up this morning talking about baseball. Obviously, half the concept of the podcast isn't just insurance. There's only so much insurance you can talk about. The Cubs really haven't shown themselves until recently in the season. There was talk that they should trade everybody off, talk that they should fire people, talk that they weren't going to become anything. But up until this point, they're still in the wild card race. The division is still possible. They didn't give up when other people told them to give up. Where do you think that parlays into sports and in our business?
Well, I mean, for one thing, there's guys like Bellinger who they signed him to a 1-year contract. He's in a contract year. I think Stroman was the same way, or at least his contract, I think, is up at the end of this year. He was with them last year too. But, Bellinger especially, I mean, that guy's just having an, MVP season. And I know fans would love for him to be sticking around for more than just this year. And I think that just the Cubs not unloading him at the deadline, that just shows them that they have the confidence in him and the team that they could actually, go places this year. They're not just giving up on the season. And honestly, I think that they'd probably have a better chance of re-signing him to a long-term deal than if they would have unloaded him at the trade deadline.
Sounds like a lot of belief that the team had in itself that it could do what it had the capacity to do.
Well, they won a lot of games right around the deadline. Like if it would have went a little bit different a week or two before the deadline, it probably would have been a totally different scenario. But they won a lot of games and they put themselves right in the middle of it. Right now, they're, I think, second place in the wild card to the Phillies.
Check.
And
they're in second place. Phillies are in the first wild card, and the Giants are in the third wild card position.
And they're only 3 games out of first place, too. So in the division. So, I mean, they have a very good chance of making the playoffs. I don't know if they'll go anywhere. They're a young team, but it's still fun. It's still exciting. It's gotten me kind of reinterested. I was really let down and depressed when they pretty much unloaded the entire World Series team. But looking back at it now, you see what those guys are doing for other teams. They're really not doing a whole lot. So outside of like maybe Schwarber, Schwarber's been pretty decent for the Phillies.
Oh yeah.
But everybody else has been very mediocre. And that team, they won the World Series, but after that, they made the playoffs a couple times. They didn't go anywhere. They couldn't hit. I kind of got over it. I realized that it made sense that they didn't keep those guys around, that they needed to maybe start from scratch again. But it's a new team. It's a rebuild, or they rebuilt it, and now, well, they're right back to a real good chance of making the playoffs. And who knows? If you're in the playoffs, anything can happen.
I hear the real question today is if the Phillies play the Cubs in either the wild card or what would be the championship round, I believe, not the division series. Does that mean we have to go to a game and broadcast live from the parking lot?
Yeah, we need to maybe go to Wrigley and maybe sit in the bleachers and do a podcast.
I know there's an old episode on a different channel of Nick and I in the parking lot of a Phillies game, but there is nothing better in sports than playoff baseball. And if the Phillies play the Cubs, I'm really not concerned about how much that costs, because writing $7,500 a week means we can figure out how to make that happen.
I think we could for sure. And with the playoffs, like I said, I mean, Cubs, they're good. They're not great, I don't think, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, you make the playoffs. Look at the Phillies last year. I mean, if you're going into the playoffs hot, you might have the worst record of any team in the playoffs, and you could still end up going a pretty long way into the playoffs and maybe even win the whole thing.
Yeah, they faced the Cardinals in the first round, and they just beat them. They just truly were better in that short 5-game format. They played the Braves, and to this day, the Braves are a great long season team and a garbage playoff team. The Braves were fully beat, and they just did not win. They went to the championship round and fought hard against the Padres and just barely beat the Padres. And then they faced a maybe better team in the Astros, who I think are still cheaters to this day, and unfortunately lost to the Astros. So anything.
I can't stand the Astros.
The Astros. I think anything can happen in the playoffs, and it'd be exciting to see if the Phillies and the Cubs can face each other this playoff season.
And then we got football. We got the Eagles to look forward to, Chris. I know you're a real big football fan.
Absolutely massive football fan with all level of sarcasm possible. So on that note, I appreciate you guys being here today as we talked a little bit about Bryce Harper's 300th home run, the Phillies versus the Cubs, not being lazy in the business, holding yourself to some level of self-accountability. Stop making excuses, create some structure to your business. And if you're watching this video and need some structure, some support, some lead finance, some real pathway to success, Adam, take the last 60 seconds, promote yourself, and give people a chance to reach out to you if they choose.
Hey, I do trainings every Monday morning. I won't be doing one this Monday, and I don't even know when this is going to be loaded, but this coming Monday is Labor Day. So won't be doing a training this coming Monday. I know I got a lot going on, but been in the business 20 years. If you are out there, if you're struggling, if you need help, if maybe you're not getting the support that you need, reach out. I'd be more than happy to help you. My ultimate goal really is just to help people achieve long-term success in the business. Again, I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years. If it didn't work, I would have found something else to do by now. So, and again, even if you're not going to work with me, find somebody that has been successful, learn from them. and replicate everything that they do and that they're teaching you, and don't change things. Don't try to take shortcuts. And I'm telling you, that's how you'll have long-term success too. Just, there's already people that know how to do it. And if it's not broken, you don't need to be the one to try to fix it.
There you go. Appreciate you guys being here today. Like, comment, and subscribe. Don't be that person that watches and doesn't click the button. Subscribe so we can continue to grow this and bring good quality grassroots organic content to YouTube on a regular basis. Adam, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks a lot, Chris. Have a nice weekend.